Hey, what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today it's time to talk about Devildriver's new album, Dealing with Demons 1 from Napalm Records. And hey, if you'd like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Now, I've been a long-time fan of Devildriver. I actually did a tier list recently talking about my favorite albums and my not-so-favorite albums. They've been a really inconsistent band over the years, I gotta say. There are some albums from them that I just think are top tier. I still enjoy to this day, have some of the best songs that they've ever written, some of the best groove metal out there, and then other albums that were just pretty darn forgettable. And then checking out the singles for this one, I just wasn't really impressed. There wasn't a whole lot there for me to really kind of sink my teeth into, nothing that was really like grabbing me by the throat like some of their older singles have in the past. But I wanted to give this an honest go, so I took a lot of time listening to it many times, and I felt like the best way for me to really talk about this was to dive deep and go song by song. So let's just go right into it. So we open with the lead single, Stay Away From Me, and it's a good song for the times, pretty fitting for the current state of things that we find ourselves in. It's an okay song. It kind of lacks energy, though. It's sort of like an okay intro track to it's like a warm-up, but I miss the days when openers were just like kick in the door and just knock your fucking teeth out. Like End of the Line, Not All Who Wander, Dead to Rights, like those were fucking openers. And this one's just kind of... it's pretty milquetoast, but I do like the little Gojira sounding squealy riff that comes up here and there. It ultimately did grow on me a little, but let's move on. Vengeance is Clear starts off really great. It kind of sounds like Meshuggah it's like Bleed Light. And so that was kind of cool, but it's a little bit clunky in terms of its structure. The transitions just feel off. It almost feels like they mashed like two different songs together, and the chorus especially just doesn't really do it for me. But there are some high points on this one. I especially like the little like southern influenced guitar interlude starting around the 2-minute mark, and there are some riffs here and there that are pretty decent, but again, just a little bit of a kind of inconsistent track. Nest of Vipers, another single here. This one opens on a particularly strong note. I do like the opening lead guitar, the kind of slidey riff. There's something a little bit different that stands out from some of the other moments on the album. Oddly enough, though, it was making me laugh a little bit because I couldn't help but think of Game Grumps and Froggy.
This brings back the good old memories of fishing with Pa.
You may have no idea what I'm talking about, but trust me, it's a comedy gem. But in any case, lots of very like Lamb of God sounding riffs on this one. So yeah, this one's a pretty solid one, but even the best parts to me, like with each listen, I had to kind of ask myself, like, do I like this as much as the older songs? And then going back and listening to them, I'm like, no. Like, this is not anywhere close to as good. It feels very rehashed by comparison. But this was another one that was a bit of a grower. When I first listened to it and did a reaction, I was pretty lukewarm. I'm still not, like, in love with it, but it is one of the better singles and one of the better songs on the album. All right, another single here, Iona. This was one that also kind of grew on me, but still just kind of generic sounding. There's nothing about it that like truly stands out. It's also a little bit repetitive. The vocal hook feels a little tired. There are some cool little guitar parts here and there, like there's one around like the 125 mark, I think. And I do love the part where he just kicks in with the "Love is a killer." That part's fun. That had me banging my head and I was having a good time. But again, lots of inconsistency here. Now, Wishing was a track that definitely caught my attention. This one has a more kind of upbeat, almost like hopeful, kind of soulful sound to it. The intro's really cool, and I actually like the singing. I know some people out there are probably, this may be their least favorite part of the album, but for me, I thought it was cool because they were doing something different. And again, it stood out because nothing else really on this album had, at that point, really done anything to really, really stick with me. I will say that during the singing parts, the guitars that go along with it are kind of like, they kind of detract from it because they're just sort of simplistic and blah, but whatever. Honestly, it feels like a riff that I could have written, which isn't saying a whole lot. But again, something different here. Standout one. If I really was going to recommend somebody check out a particular track on here, this would probably be one of them. You Give Me Reason to Drink. I love that title, but I just feel like it's not nearly as bitter as it should be to match that. The guitar work's a little uninspired. It's fun. There's a cool little like mathy transition that happens. I really like that part. More of that, please. A little bit more technicality in the guitars, for the love of God. But yeah, this is a kind of middle of the road song, a little bit above average, but nothing to really write home about. Witches is potentially my favorite track on the album. I love the very kind of metalcore sounding riff on this one. It actually sounds something like off of an As I Lay Dying album. The production leaves it a little bit flat, and the chorus could use just like a little bit more oomph, but it's almost there. This is, again, like my personal favorite on the album. I almost feel like maybe it was written at a different time under different circumstances, because it just has a different energy and a different feel than a lot of the other songs, in my opinion. But it's really good. So this one has my vote for like the main song that I would have chosen as a lead single. All right, then we got the title track. This one was another grower. It's not super remarkable. And for a while, like I was listening to it and even just thinking about it now, I remember that I like it more every time I listen to it, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head without playing it again what this song sounds like. Like, that's a lot of this album, which is kind of disappointing for me. And I'm letting you know, like, I didn't just listen to this once and go right into my review. I listened, I took a break, I listened, and it's not sticking. The Damn Don't Cry, this is another one of my top favorites on the album. Very solid intro that actually got me banging my head, which, again, like, that's what Devildriver is all about. I'm supposed to be banging my head all the way through, throwing my fists in the air, throwing the horns up. That's Devildriver for me, in a nutshell. From the very beginning, I've been listening to them since I waited outside Best Buy as a high schooler for the debut album to drop, and I need more of that. So this song, it gave me some of that, and also more kind of cool little southern-sounding solos on this one, some Pantera vibes even at times, and more slide guitar too, so good stuff. And then they close with Scars Me Forever, which is a pretty good closer. It has this very mournful atmosphere, and I appreciate that. This one reminds me a little bit in that the kind of emotional engagement to their earlier material. And yeah, it's one of the few songs that actually kind of grabbed me on that level, which is another thing that Devildriver is usually able to do, but has just fallen short of in more recent years. But yeah, the songwriting's not particularly exciting, but it's a good example of how if you've got enough genuine feeling behind it and you can kind of get under your skin, then that'll make up for it in many ways. So pretty good closer. So yeah, ultimately kind of a mixed bag. There are some higher moments on here, but a lot of middle of the road, which was kind of what I was expecting. And again, I was trying to throw that bias aside as much as I could. And just remember, like, I'm a fan. Watch the tier list. I have a lot of positive things to say about this band and a lot of their different albums, not only the old ones, but again, like, I'm a big fan of Trust No One. But again, each album used to have, like, those big tracks, those anthemic tracks that we would throw on and drive and just bang our heads to in the car while we were going somewhere and talk about and imitate the guitar riffs and the vocal hooks and a lot more sing-along moments, and that's just not happening on this album. At least I don't feel like it. So ultimately, if I'm giving this thing a rating, for enjoyability, I could give it an 8. It's between a 7 and an 8, but I feel like I started off feeling like it was a 7, and repeat listens did warm me up a little bit to the point where I'd probably be comfortable giving it about an 8. Musicianship, this is the weakest area for me. I gotta give him a 7. It is just very, very average, like painfully so. Devildriver's never been the most technical band, but they've had better guitar work than this. Like, I really always come to Devildriver for Dez's vocals and the guitar work, and the guitar work just really falls short. It's just very often simplistic, sometimes repetitive, and just doesn't it doesn't stand out. Like, it's hard for me to remember off the top of my head, save for a few special places on the album, anything. Like, anything at all. So 7 there. And then 8 for innovation. I did give them that extra point in this category for taking a chance on Wishing. It's a ballsy move for many bands to do something like this, but I'd be interested in hearing more, because I feel like there's only so much Devildriver can retread, and you can hear on the songs that are just trying to do Devildriver by the numbers that the tread has worn off of these tires long ago. It's time to change things up. And so got to give them credit for that. So rounding that up, we got like a 7.7. It's a C+. I feel like that's kind of almost generous, but it's not a bad rating too. Again, if you got a C+ in school, you're passing. You're doing okay. You're a little bit above average.
I'm special!
But yeah, compared to the other albums that are out there this year, because there's so many, especially in the underground, just amazing albums that I've been reviewing. And again, if you're new to the channel, I hope you'll stick around and check out my other reviews and roundups and all that good stuff. But in that pantheon, this ranks very low. And then just again, as a Devildriver album, I'd rank this pretty far down. I definitely like it better than the cover album that they just did, and I know some people really enjoyed that thing. For me, it's my least favorite by far. Again, check out my tier list, you can see my rankings, but I'd probably put this one just a little bit above that, somewhere in that range. It's by no means a bad record. I've heard some really bad albums, and I don't even talk about those. The fact that I'm even taking time to talk about it on the channel generally means that I'm a fan of the band, I like them enough that I think they're worth my time, and the album was decent enough that I still want to talk about it and share it with you. So at the end of the day, go out and listen to it, and then come back, tell me in the comments what you thought of this album. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? Sorry, I didn't mean to channel Fantano there. And then yeah, again, if you're new here, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and check out the tier list, the podcast, the Bandcamp exploration, so many good things. Also in the description, you can find links to our social media, the email newsletter, and our Patreon and Subscribe Star. If you want to take that extra jump to becoming a full-on supporter, would really appreciate it. Even just $1 a month adds up. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.